Hello, yeah, well, the nights are drawing in now. It's getting dark, getting late, I'm getting noisier. This is about the third time I've made this review and I've been eating Pringles. I need them to get me through it. Okay, I've managed to record this video twice without actually pressing record. And yeah, so I'm a bit narked now. So anyway, I kind of, with my last video, which was called A Quick Chat About Speaker Placement, I managed to spark a wee bit of a debate going, and you know, as much as all 88 views of this video will sort of allow for a debate going, but it kind of seems to be going along the floor standers and stand mounting speaker kind of thing. Okay, and yeah, it is down to your taste at the end of the day, but I will kind of add my tuppence worth. Okay, now my lovely friend Ashley, who sends me nice text messages and things, has yeah, he gets me out of all sorts of fixes and does sort of, you know, correct me when I'm wrong. And yeah, he's added basically to what I said last time about speaker placement, because, you know, I think on my feet. I don't prepare these videos or anything, I just chat away. And yeah, I did omit to say quite a few things which I kick myself for, really, because I should have said them. Okay, the main thing that he commented on basically was the fact of you know, good bass reproduction in speakers. So I suppose, you know, when we're talking about that, you know, bass is not hi-fi. That's a fallacy. Okay, bass is not hi-fi. Good bass is hi-fi, but so is good mid-range, so is good stereo placement, so is you know, excellent treble reproduction, which produces all the detail in the treble without sounding shrill and harsh and, you know, getting on your nerves. But yeah, you know, bass is a part of it, but it can be, because, you know, it can be sometimes overwhelming, and like in any room, okay, if there's going to be any sort of problems with a room interacting with the speaker, it's going to be with the bass. So, you know, if we're talking about the bass a lot, it's not because we like bass heads, it's because we're, you know, it is, you know, because we want proper tuneful bass. Okay. So Ashley said, you know, a few things. I'll try not to ramble too much. Firstly, regarding bass, something that's often overlooked, which can have a massive effect on a speaker's bass response, is its coupling. That is the physical connection between the cabinet of the speaker and either the floor or stands, depending on whether it's a floor standing or stand mount speaker. This is the reason any good floor standing speaker, and indeed the base of any good pair of speaker stands, is fitted with a set of spikes to couple it to the floor. Okay, yes, and he goes on to say that you must use those spikes. Use them because they couple the speaker to the floor. If you plonk it directly on the floor, then any vibrations in the speaker are going to vibrate through the floor. Any vibrations in the floor are going to vibrate through to the speaker, and you might not think that actually sounds like, you know, a big deal, but it actually is, in terms of, you know, the sort of fidelity that you're getting from your speakers. Okay, so, you know, use the stands, get them level. Okay, I've got a spirit level here on my mobile phone, but, you know, you could use an ordinary one if you like. Okay, and, you know, last night the air turned blue because I've been experimenting with the amount of toe-in of my speakers, and because my floors aren't necessarily perfectly level, the air turned blue as I was trying to sort of get them sort of as level as I can. But I think I've just about done it. Okay, it's not perfect, but, you know, it's as perfect as, you know, as it really needs to be. Okay, in this plane here, this way, they're level. This way, kind of, they're just the tiny weeniest bit out, but they're still within the two little bars on the spirit level. So, you know, it's not too bad. Okay, but get them level. Okay, go through all the sort of pointers that I made last time. Get your speakers level. That's you know, another way of setting them up. Use the spikes. Okay. The other point that he mentions is cabinet size. Really, he says the debate as to whether a stand mount speaker can produce as much bass as a floor standing speaker. Remember, we're talking about the difference between tuneful, tight bass that provides a solid, good, you know, bass, if you like, for your, for the music, makes it danceable, okay, as opposed to boomy bass, which will not be danceable, okay, and will swamp out everything else as well, okay. A well-designed stand mount speaker, says Ashley, can in fact reproduce the same low frequencies that a floor stander can. Yes, it's absolutely true. However, such frequencies are often amplified more, i.e. made to sound louder, by the larger cabinet of the floor stander. If the floor stander is well designed, this will appear to add to the sound. If the floor stander is not well designed, assuming that it's set up correctly, it'll make the sound boomy and result in overwhelming amounts of bass. Yes, that's absolutely fine, but again, I'd add that there's another complication, and that complication goes as follows. Here comes my Pringles pop. Okay, you have to forgive me, I've got a computer window, as it were, open over half my video. Okay, right, but imagine this is the speaker, okay? Imagine that Mr. Pringle here is the cones that the sound comes out of, okay? Now, the sound you want to hear goes that way. Okay, but sound waves go in sort of waves, like sort of circular sort of things or semicircular sort of things. Bass sound waves are much bigger than treble sound waves, and some of them will make their way around that way, and some of them will make their way around that way, and as well as that, there'll also be sound coming from the back, okay? And those bass waves, those bigger bass waves, will come from around the back, and they will come around here, and they will cancel out the ones that you want to hear in the front. Okay, so that's a consideration, that because floor standers are smaller, they've got a lot less cabinet to have to travel around. So there is the issue when they're designing these speakers to try and sort of keep them the depth of the speaker, you know, from front to back, that tends to be quite big. It is to try and stop that happening, okay? It's less of an issue with a floor stander because the cabinets are larger anyway, okay? With well-designed sort of bass units, bass speaker cones, woofers as they tend to be known, then it can be an issue even in stand mounting speakers, but not stand mounting speakers, floor standing speakers, but that's an issue, okay, of these, what I think they're called standing waves, basically, where bass waves come out from the back and cancel out those in the front, okay. So it's an issue, okay, but not that much of an issue that you need to worry about. It's a design issue, but more expensive, and you can get some really good stand mounting speakers, it has to be said. You can get some really, really good ones, okay, that would knock the pants off my Rigas here, okay. And that are jolly expensive, all right. That's a slight consideration, but there are a few more considerations, really. Now, let's pretend that you're coming to me, Dr. Piercy here, and you're telling me that you have problems with bass in your system, boomy bass in your system. Well, the first thing to consider is really, like my record collection, mostly my record collection, most of my records, absolutely fine, okay? I really can't say that I have too much of a bass issue with any of them, really. In fact, none whatsoever, except that last night I came across one record, okay, and it's this one by Erasure here, okay. This is what we mean by basically uneven, boomy bass, okay. This is a lovely album, a great album from the late 80s. Track 1, A Little Respect, which a lot of you will know, basically. I can believe that it starts out with not very much bass in it at all, but then as the bass gets going, as the track gets going, sorry, and the drums come in and whatnot, the bass does come in, and boy does it come in. Boom, 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 like that. Boom, 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 boom. Well, actually it doesn't. What happens is that those low notes resonate with something or other in this room. Okay, they swamp it out. So basically you get, and if I should falter, would you open your boom, 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 boom. and then it goes away again, and then it comes back again, and that's uneven bass response. That's what we mean, okay? Thankfully, this is about the only record I've got in my collection that does it. Okay, if I find another one, I'll let you know. Okay, but it would be a challenge. It would be interesting to take this to a record store demonstration and actually get to hear it, and you know, and see what other equipment makes of it. Okay, but yeah, you know, it's a real tough cookie of a record to play. Okay, I played Halo James last night because I was in a late 80s, early 90s mood. Halo James made one album called Witness in the late 80s, and it had their best known hit on it called Could Have Told You So. And you know, that whole album, absolutely fine, no problems whatsoever. I then played Ella Fitzgerald, who's over there behind me, you know, a nice mono recording, dating back to the 50s. It is an 80s reissue, but it kind of, you know, dating back to the 50s, you know, with, you know, some really, you know, again, you know, those sort of upright basses, you know, boom, 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 those ones, you know, they can really shake the floor, but it's all very well controlled and all, you know, sort of well within the realms of, you know, really good tuneful bass. Okay, but I've found one record so far where, yeah, it's a difficult, tough cookie. Because of that, and because of the fact that, again, bass is an issue on some of my CDs, but it tends to be of a genre, i.e. modern chart music, for example, like my Adam Lambert kind of thing, and that sort of thing. In some of my Brett Dennen stuff's a bit basic, but that's down to the mastering. Okay, good equipment can ameliorate the effects of bad mastering. It will never get rid of it totally, but you know, it can lessen it and you know, make it more bearable. But it's a few in the system. If it's all of your system, then you have a problem, and usually the problem is to do with setup. Okay, Food Eats commented on Ashley's big comment, and basically says that in a small room, he's confident in saying that stand mounts require less muss and fuss to set up than larger floor standers. Maybe not as much in a medium or large room, I believe. I actually disagree with that. I actually think that in a large room, you really have not got to worry too much about how big your speakers are. Okay, you know, obviously a tiny little mouse of a speaker, yeah, but you know, within all kind of you know, realms of whatever, you know, just within reason, as it were, you know, if you've got a medium or a large floor stander, maybe the size of an RX7 or something like that, you haven't got a problem. RS7, sorry. You know, you haven't got a problem really, because room resonance isn't an issue with a larger room. So through Eats, I'd take issue with that. It's probably easier to set up larger speakers in a large room. Okay, quite difficult to set up stand mount speakers in order to optimize the bass. You'll have to fiddle and faffle a little bit, but you'll get it how you like it. Okay, but yeah, I would agree though that by and large, floor standers on the whole are a heck of a lot less fuss than stand mounting speakers. Okay, yeah, it comes down to a couple of things really. It is a fallacy to say that stand mounting speakers are budget designs. They're not. Okay, you can get some extremely expensive stand mounting speakers, okay, that will knock the socks off anything I've got here. I'm just going to check that this is recording again. Yes, we are. Okay. All right. So yeah, you know, that isn't the issue. The issue is something called sensitivity, and sensitivity is basically how easy an amplifier finds it to move the cones. Okay. Now, the thing that is not going to be easy about moving the cones is an electrical thing called resistance, which is to do with, it's measured in ohms, OHMS, okay? right? Most, the ideal kind of sort of figure for an easy to drive speaker is around about 8 ohms. Okay. Now, small stand mounting speakers, because they're not very sensitive, and we'll talk about sensitivity in a second, they tend to be more resistant. They tend to be, now again, the lower the number here, the harder it is to drive. Okay, so a 4 ohm speaker will need more power from an amplifier than an 8 ohm speaker. Okay, and stand mounting speakers, by and large, tend to be more resistant, i.e. they tend to be, some of them have been known to draw about sort of 2 ohms of power, which is, a huge amount of power for an amplifier to have to provide. Okay, and it's all down to this thing called speaker sensitivity. Okay, the benchmark figure, and this is measured in decibels for speaker sensitivity, is 90 decibels. Okay, if you halve the sensitivity, i.e. make it harder to drive by half as much, all you have to do is knock 3 decibels off that measurement. Okay, so 87 decibels is a speaker that's half as sensitive as one at 90 decibels. Okay, and you quite often find stand mounting speakers with quoted figures sometimes as low as 84 or 86 decibels. Okay, and that is a very hard speaker for an amplifier to have to drive. It tends to mean that amplifiers have to be more powerful and not less powerful to drive a smaller speaker. Okay, so the same amplifier driving a pair of stand mounting speakers, as opposed to, I mean, this is just what I've found, and I've owned stand mounting speakers as well, and I've always found, without any hesitation whatsoever, that stand mounting speakers have been far more relaxing to listen to, just basically because the amplifier has been having an easier time than it has been, and I'm talking about within my budget. Okay, within my budget and my musical taste. Okay, all right. Yes, perhaps if I was to shell out 3 times as much as my RS5s cost on a pair of stand mounting speakers, yes, I might find that it's not quite so true. But again, I'm just talking in generalisation here. Okay, an amplifier needs to be more powerful. Okay, you're talking about power to drive a small to medium room. Okay, normally about 50 watts RMS per channel is more than enough. Okay, but with stand mounting speakers, maybe a little bit more is advisable. Okay, I mean, my LXR is about 80 watts per channel, something like that. 80 watts or 72 watts or something like that, but that's about that sort of ballpark, really. Okay, and I think if I were to compare it with comparable stand mounting speakers, I think my RS5s would win out any time, just because they're 89, their sensitivity is measured out at 89 decibels. Okay, and a stand mounting speaker is likely to be less. Simple. Okay. Sorry, I'm pausing for frequent drink breaks. I've made this video 3 times, as I've said. Okay. Now, other things to consider then. If your whole collection, the bass is not quite right in your whole collection, or at least most of it, you've got to consider the speaker stands. Okay, and again, once you've got, let's pretend that we're talking, because I know them, we're talking about the Riga range here. Okay, let's talk about these RX1 speakers. They're Riga's stand mount speaker. They're about 800 quid, I think, 700 or 800 quid. All right, once you've got a pair of stands for them, you might as well have bought the RX3s, sorry. Okay, because you're going to pay nearly that to get a decent pair of stands. Okay, we're not talking about something that's being put together with MDF glue from MFI or IKEA. Okay, we're talking about dedicated speaker stands which are there to stop unwanted vibrations, as Ashley is saying, getting from the floor and from around about the sort of environment into the speakers. Okay, and there are proper manufacturers that actually care about sound quality and care about what their stand is going to do to a pair of speakers, okay, sonic wise. And again, the materials that the stand is made out of has to be sympathetic to the materials that the speaker is made out of. It has to be coupled correctly, okay. I use blue tack, and yeah, you know, it did the job, kept them on there, but you know, wasn't necessarily the best way. I had a pair of cheap metallic sounding stands, and I'm pretty sure that was responsible for, you know, part of, you know, some of the sort of shrill treble sounds that, you know, that I was getting back in ye olde early days of my hi-fi sort of discovery, as it were. And yeah, you know, you've got to consider that, and it's just one extra thing to have to consider, to demo, to get home and find that it doesn't quite sound the same as it did in that fantastic demo room, you know. So you know, it's really, you know, once you've taken all that into account, a pair of speakers on stands is really only the same size roughly as a pair of budget, or not budget necessarily, but small floor standers, because, you know, PMC's budget floor standers are $2,500. Do you know what I mean? It's not budget, okay? But a small pair of floor standers at any price essentially is roughly the same as a pair of stand mounts on stands. Okay, so again, there goes another fallacy that, you know, these, you know, stand mounts are gonna sort of fit into some cozy corner of your room. They ain't. They'll sound terrible. Once they're on stands, as they should be, then you know, they'll be the same size as that. So, you know, and roughly the same price. So it kind of equals things out a bit, really. Okay. So it just comes down to what you prefer and what you like in terms of your room. There's no one person going to say that this is better than that or that's better than this. It's what you like. Okay. If your entire music collection is sounding boomy, then something else that you might need to consider is the furniture upon which the rest of your system is placed. When I first started out as a lad, that sort of thing. When I first started out, I just bunged everything on a table. I managed to short circuit the first amplifier I ever had. That was also due to bad setup, i.e. I used bare wires and hadn't made sure that one didn't touch the other, and so I jolted the amplifier one day and it went poof, and there was my little niece, who must have been about 4 or 5 at the time, in the room as well. Managed to get the shop to replace it. I think we had to tell them that there was a small child in the room, and had it gone up in flames, we would have been, you know, and caused any more damage than it did, we might be suing the arse off them. But and that I think kind of swayed them into thinking perhaps we'd better replace this person's amplifier. But yeah, you know, I bunged everything all on a table. Thankfully, I hadn't put any equipment on top of an amplifier. You must never put anything directly on top of an amplifier. They get jolly hot. Okay, they get jolly hot, and it's a fire hazard. Okay, so, you know, make sure there's air around things. Okay. But the minute that I bought the same thing that I've got now, and I don't know why I'm pointing that over there because you can't see it, but my hi-fi rack that I've got now, I bought that in about 1999 or something, and at the time it was probably under £200. It would probably be more expensive nowadays, but again, it was a dedicated rack that was actually meant to control the vibrations of hi-fi equipment, stop unwanted vibrations getting in, and stop things being vibrated by the hi-fi equipment. And, you know, it really did the job. The minute that I got my amplifier onto that, and it was only my little Rotel RA931, the replacement thing from the thing that went bang. Okay, it's 931 or something like that, or 921, don't remember. I'm not a good model number person anyway. But yeah, the minute that I did that, everything tightened up. Everything tightened up. The bass became controlled as much as it could, given that it was a Rotel RA931 amp or something or other, which wasn't, you know, didn't sound bad, but wasn't fantastic. The bass tightened up. Music got more danceable. suddenly everything sort of started to develop the kind of things that I would be looking for in a hi-fi system today. Clarity, you know, stereo placement, all of that sort of thing. It all just suddenly clicked into place. And it was simply because I'd put my equipment properly on a rack. Okay, so yeah, you know, when you're talking about speaker placement, you're talking about everything else placement as well. Okay, and you know, as to whether you prefer stand mounts or whatever, it's up to you. Okay, you might not even like the look of a pair of monster things in your lounge. Okay, but oh no, that's terrible, because please don't call stand mounts floor standing speakers monsters, because they don't have to be. You know, once they're on stands, they just become really the same size as a pair of floor standers. Okay, and you might prefer the look of one or the other. You might prefer the sonic qualities of one or the other. Okay, and one manufacturer's stand mounting speakers do not sound the same as another manufacturer's stand mounting speakers. Okay, so you know, it's all up to you really. But hopefully in these two videos and with this conversation, I have to say thank you to Ashley and thank you to Fadis as well, for commenting on there. Yeah, you know, I will be ambivalent, but I prefer floor standing speakers, but you might not, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day. It's what you enjoy. All right, see you later. Bye.